Thank you.
Mr. Chaffetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Zeitz, for being here.
Thank you.
The President promised when he was running for election that he would not increase taxes on anybody earning $250,000 or less. Do you believe that to be the case, and is that the case moving forward?
Yes, the President is committed to no tax increases for those families earning $250,000 or less, or individuals at $200,000 or less.
But he's already violated that pledge, has he not? I mean, isn't the medical device tax at 2.3% that's about to kick? Isn't that a tax on people earning $250,000 or less?
The medical, you need to tell me more about the medical device tax and how that impacts individuals.
Well, anybody, if you're earning less than $250,000 and you need to go purchase a medical device, you're going to have a new tax at 2.3%.
That's a corporate tax, or it's an individual
No, it's
tax?
an individual tax. I'd appreciate if you look into that.
I will look into that.
The indoor tanning tax, the tax on tobacco, the individual mandate. I mean, there's a long list of things that have already been implemented that I think violate that pledge, and I would appreciate your perspective on it. Because to say that that's true and will continue to be true in the future, I just think is factually inaccurate.
Let me have my staff follow up with yours on those individual taxes and how they actually relate to individuals.
Thank you. You refer to a sustainable rate of debt as a percentage of the GDP.
Mm-hmm.
What is that sustainable? What is that actual number? What do you think is an acceptable level of debt for this country?
Well, this budget has it come down to about 76% of GDP.
But if you look at the total debt that's offered by the Treasury, the total percentage, what percentage do you think is an acceptable level?
Well, I think that importantly at this stage is the most important milestone is to stabilize it. As we've talked about, our work's not done.
But it's like 100% now, right? So
no, I think that's not the right way to look at it. I think the right way to look at it is the debt that is held by the public, and that currently in 2011.
So what's the case to say? Why wouldn't we look at the total debt? Why wouldn't we look at all the obligations that are federal government?
To look at debt that's within the federal government, that's sort of inside the family, if you will. This is looking outside. Debt held by the public, I think, is the right metric. It's what most people would agree is the right metric.
And so you think it can get as high?
But I just want to get back to you on the percent. Currently, in 2012, that's about 74%.
Would I be inaccurate to say, if you look at debt, which is on this page 203 of the budget, debt issued by the Treasury, that when President Obama took office, it was in the range of $9 trillion, and that under this plan that's put forward by the President, it would go to $26 trillion. Can you see why people are concerned about this?
Absolutely, and I would say a major root cause of that problem is the fact that in the prior administration, we had
You're actually going to blame President Bush. You're going to actually blame President Bush.
If you want to answer your question as to where does the bulk of that debt come from,
you really think we're
it comes from unpaid for tax cuts. It comes from unpaid for Medicare Part D. It comes from unfunded or unpaid for wars. And then inheriting the Great Recession, which we absolutely needed to dig ourselves out of. The hole was very, very deep.
Let me move on. I want to move. I totally and fundamentally disagree with you from top to bottom. The bottom line is the President was elected at $9 trillion in debt, and we're going to grow it to over $26 trillion under his plan, under his numbers. And I think that is fundamentally wrong. Let me move on. No, I can't. I've got a minute and 15 seconds. You said your part. I wanted to say mine. I want to talk about the federal payroll, because if federal payroll continues to increase, the reality is there are 145,000 additional federal workers, not counting the uniformed military, postal, or census workers. 145,000 additional federal workers. The President stood before the American people and said he was putting a pay freeze in place. I think that was a farce, because through step increases, rewards, and bonuses, the payroll went up. It continues to go up. Can you please explain to me, at what point do we think we can actually justify increasing the payroll even more and more?
Well, this year's budget actually calls for essentially a flat number of employees in those agencies that you're citing.
But
your 145,000 is 89% of that is security related. I think we all would agree that our veterans should get care in the hospitals, that we should protect our borders at DHS. So 89% of the increase.
You've made your point. Let me ask this last thing, Mr. Chairman. And I know you don't have this whole thing memorized, but page 114 of the Analytical Perspectives, it says, this pay increase proposal permits savings of approximately $28 billion over 10 years, and it continues. if your staff could help explain how a pay increase has a savings over the course of times.
Well, I want to be very clear that the President froze civilian pay for 2 years. This proposal is for 50 basis points, 0.5% of an increase, and the savings is the difference between that and what happens in the private sector, which is 1.7%.
Payroll went up. Thank you.
With Ms. McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Zentz. I'd like to shift gears here a little bit and talk about a part of the budget that we usually don't